all of you who signed up today signed up because you have some connection to someone who is living with dementia, whether you're a professional or a family caregiver, or just have someone in your life, family, friend, neighbor who's living with dementia and they're having a lot of challenges. And so we're here today to explore together what are those changes that happen with normal aging, because we're all aging, we're all at different parts of our journey in life, and what's not normal. When is it not? When is it something that you should get checked out, and could it possibly be dementia or something else? So the training that we're doing today is part of the Positive Approach to Care curriculum. So Teepa Snow is the founder and the head of Positive Approach to Care, and Hale is a Positive Approach to Care designated organization. And this is the training program we use at Hale as well. So we really want to take a step back and look at what's happening for the person who's living with dementia, what's happening with the changes in their brain, and how we can adjust ourselves and our approach to be able to help and support them, because the people who are living with dementia really are doing the best they can every moment of the day. So this Positive Approach to Care philosophy is what is behind what we're learning today and behind what we do at Hale as well. So for today, we're going to start by looking at what's normal. And for those of us who are getting a little older, I'm sure we've all had those moments where we wonder, it's like, oh my goodness, is this normal? I can't remember that person's name. And what's not normal? And what is it if it's not normal, what's going on? What is changing in the brain? And looking into how we are processing our sensory inputs differently with dementia. And also, after we've explored all that, then now what? What do we do as care partners, whether we're professional or home? How can we help, given all that we know now about the changes that are going on in the brain? So I wanted to start out with taking a look at some brains. So we all have them. They're all different ages. And so on the left-hand side here, there's the PET scan of a 20-year-old person, and then the right-hand side, an 80-year-old. So if you can picture a 20-year-old, let's say a 20-year-old young man versus an 80-year-old man from the external, looking at them separately, I'm sure you could tell them apart by age very easily. You would have all kinds of visual cues to let you know who was 20 and who was 80. But looking at these PET scans, take a look at them. So PET scans show the red is the highest activity area, and then going down to yellow, green, and then the blue, those kind of pockets of fluids in our brain where there isn't brain activity, and that's perfectly normal. What do you notice about these two brains when you look at them? The difference between the reds and the difference between the other colors? They're remarkably similar, compared to what you would think the outside of the package, the brain package looks like. They're very, very similar, but there are some changes. So this top part is the front. If you touch the front of your head, the front of your brain, your frontal lobe, and then the back here, your occipital lobe. This is the vision center back here. So we see some changes here, but for the most part, it looks pretty much the same. So we do have some changes as we age, just as we have physically. We maybe don't run as fast as we did when we were 20. Things are we have to be a little more careful as we move, for example. But with our brain changes as we get older, things take a little longer. It might take us a little longer, a few more repetitions to learn something new. We're a little bit slower. It's harder to multitask, maybe. We're a lot more careful. We hesitate. We see people, but we can't remember who they are. I should know that person. Oh my God. And in the pressure of the moment, this person is standing right in front of me. The more pressure that's on you, the less likely your brain's going to come up with that name. And it's usually not till they walk away and you're like, oh, I can't believe I didn't know that person. Am I losing it? That's a common question that we ask ourselves. Having to pause to find words. You know what you're trying to say and you're talking all around it. You can describe who this actor was in the movie, like, oh, they have a beard, they have long hair, they were in that other movie, but you just can't find the name of that person. You just can't find the right word, but you do find it eventually. You do come up with the person's name eventually. We use a lot of things from especially geographic locations or physical locations to be connected to the present. So, we might say, oh, where the old Liberty House was, for example. It's, oh yeah, we all know where that is. I have a mental map of where Liberty House is, but if it changes, it might take me a little while to remember, but I can pin it back to that old information. Old information is connected to new information, and that connection helps me remember. Because as we get older, we just have a lot of information in there. There's a lot of things we have to file through. Young people don't have as much stuff to file through to find it, so that's why it takes us so much longer. When we have these kinds of challenges, trying to remember all the things that are on our list, trying to remember somebody's name, what kind of things do we do to compensate for those things? So think to yourself for a second, what kind of things do you do to compensate? I know we all have devices that we use to try and keep track of things. Taking notes is another way people do. At my office, anybody who works with me will know, if you come in and tell me something, I will whip out a Post-it and write it down, because if I just try and remember it by myself, some other piece of information is going to come in that one first piece is going to drop out. I can only hold 5 to 7 items in my working memory at one time. And when I'm under any kind of stress, or if it exceeds that, that's on a good day, I'm going to forget things, and that's normal. These things that we're looking at here, things are being a little bit slower, not taking a while to remember someone's name, going into a room and forgetting why you went in there. Now, why did I come in here? Wait, I was just sitting over there. And I have to go all the way back to the chair, sit back down in the chair, like, oh, well, I meant to get a cup of coffee. I got distracted. The phone rang, the dog barked, whatever it was. And that's perfectly normal, perfectly normal. Okay, I see some talk about the volume. I'm adjusting my volume a little bit here. Okay. So as we age, we don't lose function in our brains unless something goes wrong with our brains. So if you think about those 2 PET scans that you saw where they look remarkably the same, the brain is still functioning. It's a little bit different. It is changing, but it's not that we can't do something. It just takes a little longer, or we have to make some sort of adaptation. It's not that we can't do. It's not that we can't remember, that it just takes, it takes some prompting, or it takes a little help. So when we do start to see changes that are not in what we think are, maybe are they not normal, I want us to pause for a moment here and think about how we think about those kinds of changes. So when we think someone is possibly living with dementia, or we start to see changes, they're different than they used to be, these are some of the words that we might have used in the past, senile, my grandmother, I have a deep personal connection to people living with dementia. My grandmother had Alzheimer's disease, and my father had vascular or stroke-related dementia, and my father-in-law had Parkinson's-related dementia. Before I knew anything about it, I thought it was a part of normal aging. No, you get old, you get senile, hardening of the arteries. That's what they used to call stroke related, things that cause strokes, they call it hardening of the arteries, or they're acting crazy, they're not right, they're stubborn, they're just getting old. The more makuli, more pupuli, I actually had a lady come to one of my in-person workshops, and she brought her mother. And when I had this slide up and was talking about how do we describe people who are behaving this strange way now that does not seem normal, her mother piped up with this one, so the older we get, the crazier we get. So these changes that come with possibly dementia, there's a lot of judgment involved, and there's a lot of stigma. Sometimes it's linked to, lumped in with mental illness, which it is not. And the last one is one that I have heard husbands and wives and other people who at Hale who see an odd behavior from someone else who's living with dementia, they're with them, just calling, I know it's kind of a rude word, but calling them crazy. And I just put it in there because it's really hard, and it's hard to understand. And that's why it just seems so foreign and other. So is there a difference between the normal aging kind of forgetfulness that we all experience and the memory loss that comes with dementia? And the answer is yes, there is a clear difference. I want us to look at these two columns here, normal aging, not normal aging. And you know, the normal aging we kind of went through already. And if you look at the not normal aging, you'll see one word that pops up over and over again. It's can't think the same, can't do like before. Can't get started, doesn't. So these are all contractions, of course, but the not, you just can't do it. It's not that, you know, you like comes to you later. You know, I don't recognize you, and I can't put it together at all. And you might be my own daughter or son or husband. I can't make those connections anymore. And it's not that I don't remember. Something has changed in my brain. Something has chemically and physically changed in my brain, and I just can't place the person, and I can't find the right words. No matter how much you ask me, what are you talking about? I can't, I don't have it anymore. It's very different. It's very, very different. So when we're looking at things that are starting to be in the not normal side of the equation, what could it be? So it could be dementia, but there are other things that can cause those kinds of symptoms. So it's very important to get a full medical workup, because it could be medication side effects. Another medical condition, you could have an infection of some kind, a UTI. Is there hearing loss? Depression, we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Delirium, another one. Pain or medication for pain. There's so many things. So it's when things change, it's sometimes over time we would just kind of adapt and get along until we can't anymore. And then we go to the doctor. But if we can pause in those moments and we're noticing things, even if we're not sure, is it dementia? Isn't it dementia? Take a deep breath and get it checked out, because there are some things that are not dementia that can be treated. And we'll talk about what kind of things we can do for dementia as well, but things like depression and delirium, those are treatable conditions and possibly reverse some of the symptoms that you're seeing. So if you go to the physician, they will do a complete physical workup, blood work, neurological exam, and really kind of getting a baseline too. So if after all of this, it is found to be a disease, some type of dementia, the earlier that you can find out, the better. And there are things that you can do to help and support, depending on the medically, depending on the type of dementia, but also for yourself as the caregiver and as the whole family, to be able to start learning and to understand and to be able to plan for this journey together. Because this person living with dementia is not going on this road alone. We're all going together. So I want to take a look at, we've ruled everything out. We've gone to the doctor and they say, yes, your mother, your father, your spouse has dementia. What is it? What is this thing, this word that's being thrown around? Is it the same as Alzheimer's disease? That was one of the questions in the quiz there. It is not a part of normal aging. It is a diseased process that is happening to changing the brain. It is not just forgetfulness, not just getting more forgetful. And it makes independent life impossible, because we'll be looking at what parts of the brain, not just memory it affects, but all parts. So your brain is an organ, just like the rest of your organs, and the diseases that cause dementia it's a degenerative brain disease, just like heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease. There are structural changes. The cells are shrinking and dying. And there's chemical changes too. So your brain is a big chemical factory. It's always producing and modulating the chemicals that get us through each day, mood, memory, and that factory is not doing so well. Sometimes it's doing pretty great, but some of the times it's not. So some parts of the day I can shine and I can really be really sharp. Like, wow, she was able to dress herself today and she recognized who I was. But, by the afternoon, I'm really confused. And so that is so hard for those of us trying to help, because it's not the same all day and it's not the same day to day necessarily because of that chemical change. So in general, the cell change is a gradual or sometimes steep decline, but then the chemical change up and down, it can make it extra challenging. So dementia, the word dementia, when you think of the word dementia, someone says, my mother has dementia, the first thing that comes to your mind, generally, it's Alzheimer's disease. That's the most common, one of the most common diseases that causes dementia. And when we think of Alzheimer's disease, the first thing we think of is memory issues, memory problems. Hale is called a memory care facility, for example. But that's usually an equation people think of. Dementia equals Alzheimer's equals memory problem. But I'm going to put a big fat X through that, and you can too, because dementia is equals brain failure. Just like the other organ failures I talked about briefly, heart disease, lung disease, the diseases that cause dementia. Dementia itself is not the disease, it's a set of symptoms, one of which is memory impairment, that is affecting the brain. So for it to raise from the level of, let's say, mild cognitive impairment up to dementia, mild cognitive impairment is the step before dementia. Not all people with mild cognitive impairment develop dementia, but many do. Two parts of the brain are severely affected. Two brain area functions are not working anymore. It is chronic and it cannot be fixed, and it's progressive and it will get worse, and it is terminal. Your brain controls all aspects of your body, not just your memory, all functions. And so when that brain has been damaged enough that it cannot sustain life, just like your heart or your lung or the other organs, it's hard to think of dementia as being terminal because it can take so long. My grandmother, who lived with Alzheimer's, looking back, of course, in hindsight, I didn't know at the time. Like I said, I thought it was just normal. This is how old people are. It was probably about 1985 or 87 when she started showing symptoms, and she didn't pass away until 2001. So it was a very long journey for her. And that's very individual. Some people's it's much shorter than that. But it's hard to think of something that can take that long as being a terminal condition. So dementia, the word dementia, if you made with your hands a big umbrella, dementia is the umbrella term for the changes that we're seeing, the cognitive changes that we're seeing caused by these diseases that are under that umbrella. So Alzheimer's disease, young onset or late onset, frontotemporal dementia, which affects the front part of your brain, but most severely, Parkinson's, Lewy bodies, vascular, so strokes, loss of oxygen supply, blood supply to the brain, causes brain damage. It can be depending on which part of the brain, but vascular dementias. And then on the right, you can see so many other types of dementia. So, football players having so many concussions causes dementia, toxicity, so lifelong alcoholism, drug abuse, all those things cause brain damage and cause dementia. So dementia is the umbrella term. Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia. So if you have Alzheimer's disease, you have dementia. You can have more than one. So I can have been a lifelong abused alcoholic my life and have Alzheimer's disease. So it's complicated. Each one of these is different. And again, this is why it's so important to get a diagnosis as early as possible to see, what's happening. Because if it's vascular dementia, let's say I've had a stroke, or there might be, chances are you'll be put on a blood thinner to prevent more future strokes. So that's different. That would not be something that would likely be prescribed if it was Alzheimer's disease. So it is important to get that correct diagnosis if possible. So the other two Ds, so dementia, depression, delirium, the three Ds. These three like to hang out together, unfortunately, and there's some overlap sometimes with what is it. So when you're getting that workup, the physician should be checking for these as well. The main thing to notice between the delirium and dementia, for example, is sudden change. So I was doing pretty good today, and then tomorrow I'm like, I am way more confused. I might be, it's like a sudden change. I'm really restless. Maybe I'm more agitated. It's like, wow, what happened? Is there dementia suddenly get worse? Pause. Sudden changes, get it checked out right away, because it could be some kind of, the first thing we check for at Hale is a urinary tract infection, and because that is a very common way, because my body, because of the changes in my brain, is not processing pain the same way. You and I would know a UTI the minute we got it, but they are not able to articulate or process that the same way. So that's the swift change is the hallmark of delirium. And then depression is different. You have more grouchy, more personality change, a very apathetic, and people who are living with dementia can have depression too. And if that depression can be treated, they can have a much better quality of life, much, much better. So it really is worth getting checked out. And sometimes it could be just depression and not dementia. So dementia changes everything, and it's important to remember it is not something that the person can control. We would never say to someone who has COPD, lung disease, just breathe deeper. You were breathing better yesterday. Take a deeper breath. I know you can do it. I know you can get up these stairs. Because we know that organ is not working properly. They cannot control how their lungs are working. The same for someone living with dementia. They're each unique. It is not a mental illness, and it is very hard. It's hard for them, and it's hard for us too. And it's important to acknowledge that it's hard. It's not something we're going to power through together. It's something that we need to face, and to figure out how to come together and build a care support team. You can't go through this alone. So these are some of the many challenges. This is not a comprehensive list. I would say this is the greatest hits list of challenges for people living with dementia and their care partners. So as you're glancing at this list, things like losing things, important things like your hearing aid, your dentures. My grandmother came to visit me once, and she promptly put her dentures in the trash and then said somebody had stolen them, but they were in the trash. Swearing, cursing, mixing up day and night, undressing in public. So I'm in the lobby of my long-term care facility and I start to undress, but I won't undress to when you want me to take a shower. So it's very challenging. So those of you who are professionals probably have seen most of these. Those of you caring for someone at home, you might have only seen a few of these, and not everyone is going to have all these problems. It is very individual, but most people throughout their journey of living with dementia will have at least a few of these challenges. So when we're faced with these challenges, sometimes it's really hard. The challenge is like right in our face, like, my mother is yelling at me and trying to kick me out of her house. That it's so shocking. It's hard in that moment to take a step back and figure out what's behind it. And what's behind it is changes in the brain. The person that we love and are caring for is having very drastic brain changes. And it's so hard because we can't see their brains. They look the same on the outside. Maybe they're older, but they look pretty much the same on the outside. Their heads are not shrinking. Whereas people who have heart disease, you might see physical manifestations like edema, leg swelling, labored breathing, things like that. As someone with the lung disease is on oxygen, it is clear that they have something going on, but it's hard to see with the brain, and it can hard to gain that understanding. So I want to take a look at these, have you look at these slides. I mean, these PET scans. You looked at the PET scan of the 20-year-old versus the 80-year-old. So this, the normal aging, this would be, I think it's a 75-year-old man, 2 slices of the brain. Again, this is the front, and then this is the back. One slice is a little higher, one slice is a little lower. So this is the same brain. So you can see there's still a lot of red going on, high burning brain activity. So this is no dementia. And then early Alzheimer's. And take a look at that. What do you notice? A lot less red, a lot more blue, a lot lighter colors, not just in the occipital lobe, the back area, but in the front, right? The frontal lobe. This is the grown-up part of our brain, judgment, impulse control in the front. Big changes, big changes. When I show this slide to the staff at Halikuike, I note this is early. These people, this PET scan person is probably not living at Halikuike. They are at home. They might still be driving. But look at the change that's happened already. So much has happened. There's a lot they can still do. There is a lot of function left, and we'll be talking about that a little bit today and even more in future webinars. But there's been a lot of change. So even with early Alzheimer's or early dementia, there's changes. This is late, getting towards the end of life. So what do you notice here? There's still some red, a lot more blue and purple. So a lot less brain activity, a lot less, more inactivity, but there are still parts burning bright red. These are the primitive, this is your vision center, and this is your limbic system here, your primitive brain core, your thrive to survive. It's still there. They are still there. They're different. And you can see from the brain is functioning differently, but they are who they were, but the brain is functioning differently. So this is an 18-month-old child. And what do you notice between the two here? Very, very similar. So when we think of an 18-month-old child, we don't think of them as, you know, these poor creatures who can't do anything, can't feed themselves, can't speak clear sentences and things. There's a lot of function there, but their brain functions different than the adult brain over here. We grow into this brain. So I want us to pause and think about the person even at the end stages of dementia as being that human being that we love and care for. They are still there all the way through the end, even though there's been these changes. So what are we looking at with these changes? We're going to look at a series of slides now of actual brains. So the shrinkage, we talked about cells shrinking and dying. So this is a normal aging brain. These wonderful people donated their brains for us to learn from. And then you can see the cells actually shrunk. So not only the whole thing shrunk up like a dry sponge there, but there's changes on the inside. So this is a cross section. Memory loss, the hallmark of what people think of, and one of the first things we might notice with many dementias, the loss of immediate recall. I don't remember that you came to visit me yesterday. I can't remember recent things, but I remember long old stories, no problem. I can tell you exactly, you know, what I served for dinner on Thanksgiving in that time so long ago. But take a look at this. So this is the normal brain. It's like fat and juicy, and then this one, there's a hole in it. So when you think about forgetting and memory, when you think about why can't mom remember that I came? You know, I come and see her every day, and every day she tells me I never come, and it hurts my heart. So I pause and take a deep breath, and the moment you were there and enjoying your visit together was real and true and joyful, and it was and is an expression of love, and your mother felt it absolutely. But the ability and the place, almost like the filing cabinet, where am I going to put that memory, just isn't there now. So it's not that she forgot, it's that she's not able to store new memories. So that kind of, for me, it kind of helped for me personally, kind of reframing it is that I am not forgotten. My mother has brain disease, and she loves it when I come. And that's what's most important. Vision. I went back of the head. So this is the back of the brain back here. It's affected. So it's not the eyes that are having the problem. It's my brain processing what comes in from my eyes. So getting me new glasses doesn't change that I'm losing my peripheral vision. I'm unaware. Things that are right in front of me, I'm tripping over. My grandmother's case, she was still driving. She would, the old garbage trucks with the guy on the back, twice before her keys got taken away, she clipped it going around it because her peripheral vision and depth perception was not good. Of course, we didn't understand that, but it's well, in another webinar, we go into that more deeply. Language changes the left and right sides of your brain. The higher language on the left, and then the rhythm on the right. So when we look at those parts of the brain, these are parts of the brain circled, you see the big changes. Vocabulary, comprehension, and speech production are affected very severely, and in certain types of dementia, very early. For some reason, with all dementias though, the left temporal lobe is affected more severely. So I have trouble finding words. I have trouble understanding words too. So I'm hearing you and I'm nodding, but I'm not getting the content, but you think I did. And then I might have trouble getting the right words. I say the wrong words, or I sound like, sometimes you hear the term word salad. Words are coming out. I think I'm making sense, but you can't understand me. And then on the right, the rhythm on the right, this is a gift. This side of the brain is preserved through the end. Social chit chat. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. Oh, you look handsome. A superficial chit chatty conversation I can do for a long time. So when people visit me, your mom seems fine, and like, oh no, my mom's not fine. But there's that I can do, and that's a gift. We can use that to connect. Music, poetry, prayer, rhythmic movements, all those things remain. So it's 3 gifts and 1. Sometimes I've heard it say, well, 3 gifts and a curse, but those forbidden words, swear words, sex talk, racial slurs. Those words are special words that if you think of the first time you used them as a child in front of an adult or a parent, what happened? The hammer came down in the old days, wash your mouth out with soap, chili pepper, those kind of things. We learn very early on that those are very powerful words, and we keep them in a different part of our brain. And we don't use them. We have impulse control, and we don't use them unless it's an emergency. So if you think to yourself a time you've almost gotten in an accident, or it's almost got hit by another car, what happened? What kind of words come out of your mouth? Not your higher language on the left, curse words on the right. So when I have lost that language on the left, I can't express in full sentences what I want, and I'm upset, that's when those curse words come out, and it can be very, very hard. But they're the words I have left, so it is a form of communication, and it's preserved. Hearing. So hearing is not affected. I might have hearing aids and have other hearing issues, but the dementia itself is not really impacting my ability to hear you. It's impacting my ability to understand you. So it's not that I am here. I'm not hard of hearing. I'm hard of comprehension. Sometimes you try to talk louder because I'm clearly not understanding you. So you think if you talk louder, it's going to help me. So it's that part of my brain has changed. So I want us to pause for a second now and think about this hearing and language understanding, and think about where we are in this moment of time in this COVID-19 pandemic. We're all wearing masks. And in healthcare, you might be wearing a mask and a face shield, as we have been at Hale. What things are missing now? You might have found for yourself, you're having a harder time understanding people, and it muffles the sound. It's harder to recognize people. You're missing some emotional, things from facial expression. It's harder. I'm sure you've been asked to repeat yourself, or they have to ask other people to repeat yourself. And I've had times where I've had to say, I'm sorry, I can't recognize you with the mask, and they have to tell me who they are, because it's just not enough information for my brain to put it together. So we already know that people living with dementia are having trouble with their visual processing. They're having trouble with their language processing. And now we're adding this onto it. What can we do? To overcome this visual cues. So people who are living with dementia, they take more in because of the changes in their language processing. They take more in from what they see, more than what is coming out of your mouth, although we all love to talk. Visual cues are, even as dementia progresses, even more important, and with the masks, even more important. So visual cues for every verbal interaction. This was my advice and Positive Approach to Care's advice even before the pandemic, but it's even more important now. So I want each of you to think of one thing, one interaction, and take your pen out or pencil, if anybody still uses a pencil, and write down a moment that you would like to try a visual cue. So would you like something to drink? Like this. Think of what the visual cue you're going to give is. We're going to stand up. Stand up. Now look, I'm using my hands and my face. Imagine I had a mask on. I'm doing it with my head. Even though they can't see your face, or even if you're not wearing a mask, they're not understanding your words, your body, your whole body is a tool to be able to connect. So jot down for yourself right now, just one thing that you would like to try today, tomorrow, the next time you're with the person who's living with dementia, a visual cue that you want to try. Come on, come on. Hug, whatever it is, whatever you're saying, give a visual cue with that. It makes such a difference, such a difference. Smile, because you can see when someone's smiling, even with a mask. Speak low and slow. That helps it with or without a mask. And introduce yourself. Even if they say, I know who you are, introduce yourself multiple times. Like, hey, Mom, it's me, Dorothy. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything, and it helps the person out. Yeah, so as opposed to the quiz show, hi, you know who I am? I'm your favorite. No, don't make it a quiz show. Nobody likes to feel stupid. So quickly going through other parts of the brain, so you can see these different cross sections. Sensory motor is up here, big changes. There's those language centers that we looked at, big changes. Those sensory changes change how I'm able to perceive my body in the world. I mentioned it earlier, my ability to locate and express pain. So I might have a UTI, but I'm moaning and rubbing my elbow, and you think it's my elbow that hurts. But it's because my brain cannot do it anymore. If you look at the second brain, it just doesn't have the brain matter to do it anymore. And on that flip side, I can become hypersensitive. So parts of my body that are extremely sensitive, us as human beings, our mouths, fingertips, toes, genitals, those can become hypersensitive. And where do we provide care? Mouth, genitals, fingernails, toenails. And so I react even more extremely, and I'm more intolerant of sensation. I have trouble because of these changes. I have trouble with self-care. I don't know how to get started. I don't know what to do next. I get turned around. But if you can show me or help me with the part I'm having trouble with, I might be able to do the rest of it. I don't know to pick up the spoon, but if you put it in my hand and help me get started, then I can keep going, because that's an old learned movement. Emotion is affected. Whatever I think, I say it. Even if it's rude and we're in the line at Costco, that's what's going to come out of my mouth. That lady should not be wearing those leggings. It's like, shh, Mom. But what's preserved is I'm an adult human being. I desire to be respected, and I want to be in control, like we all do. I'm not able to understand and see these changes that you can see so clearly. So I want to take a moment to pause here. People who are living with dementia, they really are doing the best they can every moment of the day, even if it's not that great, for you and them. But that's what best they can do with the changes that are happening in the brain. And this is a very important, if you're at home or wherever you are, make a little timeout symbol for yourself. When you start seeing those changes, they can take you off guard, and it is scary, and it can be heartbreaking and frustrating. Why is she like this? This is driving me crazy. Pause. The timeout is for you. Take a deep breath, because when you're under stress, your brain is not working well at all either. Remember who has the healthy brain in this relationship, and take a breath. You might need 2 or 3. You might need to step away. You might need to have someone else come in, take the reins for a moment. No one person can care for someone living with dementia 24/7 throughout the journey. It's too much. It's too hard. And your own mental health and stress is something that is increases your risk of getting your very own dementia as well. So just remember, you are the one with the healthy brain that needs to be taken care of and nurtured as well, so that you can help and support them. People living with dementia cannot make it through this day or even moment to moment without us. They need us for those losses we saw in their brains. Our brains are still intact, and we can make up that difference for them. So care partners, please, professional and family, take care of yourself. You've taken the first step of understanding the symptoms and the progression and building your skill. Future webinars will do more with actual physical techniques and things like that, looking at more closely at those changes in the different parts of the brain and how to overcome those changes, or transcend rather. And make sure that you build a support team early if possible, as early as possible. And sometimes we feel I want to do this for my mom, and as a good daughter, I should be able to do this. We're only human. We need to care for ourselves, forgive ourselves for not being superhuman, and get help. Build a team. It could be your family. Sometimes it's not. It can be other people outside your family as well. Start to plan, getting that early diagnosis, plan for the probabilities. I showed that slide with all the challenges. You're not going to have them all, but it's important to understand that things might come up and to plan for them. Raise your own skill level and knowledge, and find someone else to help to raise the skill too. Get others on board. Keep track. It's good to take notes because it's hard to remember in stressful moments. Watch for signs. It's like being a detective, taking notes when you go to the physician and you want to talk to other family members about the changes. It's nice to have actual details for yourself and for them to say, wow, I didn't realize that, she woke up at 2 a.m. 5 out of 7 days of the week. It's all a blur because I didn't get enough sleep. But get help early and being flexible. So I wanted to just go over that quiz that everyone did at the beginning. So dementia is a normal part of aging? No, it is not. It is the result of a disease process or other effects of the brain, like multiple concussions or sustained alcohol abuse. It is not a normal part of aging. It is not inevitable. But age is the biggest risk factor. So the risk of developing a dementia goes up as you get older in your 80s and 90s. But again, not all 80 and 90-year-olds get dementia either. It's a disease process. A person can be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease but not have dementia. That is false. Dementia is the big umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease is one kind of dementia, one cause of dementia. People living with dementia this is true, pay more attention to what they see than what they hear. And it's because the vision is intact, but their language comprehension is having trouble. Even though they can hear you just fine, they're not comprehending. It is true as we get older to have slower thinking, forget names, and just need to pause to find words. So everybody take a deep breath. Whew. It's okay. Those things are normal. When you forget why you went into a room, it's okay. It's okay. Certain language abilities are preserved and not lost with dementia, like music and swear words. It is absolutely true. So I might not be able to put a full sentence together, but I can, if you start singing a song from my youth or childhood, I can sing all the words. It's like, wow, she can sing all these words, but she can't answer a question, simple question. Different parts of the brain. It all goes back to the brain changing. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming to today's workshop. We do have more, like I said, we have 6 more coming up. So you could go to bit.ly HK workshops to see them. They're the first Wednesday of each month. And Hale, where I work, is the sponsor of these free workshops. If you want to learn more about the positive approach to care, you can visit teepasnow.com. And we did do a whole series of these last year in conjunction with Catholic Charities Hawaii Circle of Care for Dementia. And so this CatholicCharitiesHawaii.org/dementia has the recorded webinars that I did, and many, many more excellent webinars from geriatricians, legal experts. It's just an amazing resource, and all the recordings are up there. So I really encourage you to check that out as well. And so